fire deva is one of the simplest things. You know, there's one. All that I did was to bring into being certain conditions. And those conditions were brought into being in such a way that a fire deva agreed to be present. The flame isn't the fire deva, it's the result of his work. Now this is an illustration, a definite illustration of how the devas do work strictly with man. You see, if that wick there was wet with water, it wouldn't light. This would mean that the fire conditions weren't right for the fire deva to appear. But the wick isn't wet with water. If there was a wick in there at all, it would be wet with gasoline. Gasoline has a flash point which is met by the rubbing of the flint on that wheel. So the fire deva, everything being right, you've caused a ritual. And he has to not be there in the flame, but he has to act, by law. If you strike a match and try to light some wet material or some material that will not burn, the fire deva will only be there when you strike the match. He will then retreat because your ritual is incorrect. But if you hold the match to some dry tinder, it will burn. This means that the ritual is correct, all conditions are right, so the fire deva takes action and causes this the fire to be present. The question is, the fire in the Hollywood Hills that stopped suddenly, did the fire deva appear in the presence of the person that stopped it? All I have to say is, God help them if it did. They'd have to be an extremely advanced person to survive such an ordeal with a fire deva. Fire deva, they are, with credit due to them, extremely destructive in one way, and yet they're not in another. They're working strictly according to law, but they work very fast and extremely quickly. If you have been in a big fire, I don't know whether any of you have, I call a big fire something you can see from say 2,000 miles away, something that from 50 miles away you can read the newspaper at midnight that burned for 3 weeks. This is a big fire. I've been in such a fire when London was bombed during the war, and you have a little idea of the tremendous power of the fire devas, you know, extremely powerful beings, and of the tremendous speed in which they can work. And when the enough power is invoked on their behalf, such as oil bombs and so on, this is invoking power on their behalf, then they will change conditions to such an extent that they want to go on and on and on. In other words, if you have a fire hot enough, water will burn. The hydrogen in the water will burn, and the oxygen in the water will help it to burn. This is what I mean by changing conditions. And then you have this great conflagration, this kind of firestorm, which is extremely difficult to put out, like you have in some forest fires, for instance. All conditions are right, bang! Fire deva will act immediately, at once, if all conditions are right. Very much faster than, I would say, most of the devas.